365, Awakening to Love. I'm your host, Tomás Garza, and as we wait for people to join us here today, let me say that it's been a lot of fun for me the last 10 days here on the live stream to review some ideas from the workbook for students in A Course in Miracles. And these are really wonderful and, to me, uplifting, very gratifying clarifications of things that we all deep down really know, no matter what our religious tradition, no matter what our spiritual background, no matter where we live in the world, or no matter what you're currently practicing. Even if that's nothing and you're looking for something to practice here, then, wherever you are, you're in the right place, because we've been covering ideas that are universal. They apply to everyone because spirituality applies to everybody. Now, of course, in the world, not everyone practices it. However, I think you do, because you're here watching a live stream on Enlightened World Network. So whatever your practice looks like, I hope that you're finding these live streams helpful. And I love, by the way, comments and questions from all of you. So feel welcome if you're tuning into the live to make comments here. This is something that I do look at. I look at it here on the live, so I'll give a few remarks based on my experience on today's workbook lesson, which is lesson 60, by the way. And then I want to say hi to everybody and take some questions, take some comments. So I welcome questions about A Course in Miracles in general, about spiritual practice in general, because the ideas that we're talking about they do for me. They really do for me. They generate a lot of questions, sometimes more questions than answers, right? Yeah. And that's good. If you're having that experience, if you find that this material causes you to question things, then you're doing it right. In fact, you can't do it wrong. But that's a good experience. If you're having this urge to get more answers, then that's good. This should generate some questions. A Course in Miracles is designed to get us to question every single thing that we now believe. And literally every single thing, including the foundations of our own being. Because we're told one thing here in the world, and reality, as we find, and we all will eventually find this, reality is quite different. And instinctively, we all know that, don't we? That's why we always say in common parlance, there's got to be something else to this. There's got to be something more out there. Is this all that I'm meant to do in the world, is have this job or this career and cash a paycheck and get paid and check my PayPal balance and check my email and eat and sleep and go to the bathroom, right? Is that all there is to it? Well, no, actually, no, it's not. There's something more to it. And we as human beings are always asking the question, what's the meaning of my life? Who am I? Well, we should ask that question. But the what's the meaning of life question, is there something more to all of this? Is there a higher purpose? Well, yes. And I think that we know that instinctively. Therefore, we turn to spiritual practice in whatever form that happens to take for you. So lesson 60 today is a very, very, well, I call it action-packed, lack of a better phrase. There's a lot in it to unwrap, so we'll go through that here. But before we do, this is the last of 10 consecutive review lessons. So what we've been doing for the last 10 days here is reviewing the first 50 lessons in the workbook for students. So if you're following along wherever you are, that's where we happen to be on this live stream. So if you're just catching this for the first time, you can find every live stream that we've done here for the last 2.5 months since I started this on the YouTube channel for Enlightened World Network. So there is a playlist. This stream is titled A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. So there is a playlist with every video that has been streaming here, and you can go back and you can watch. And if you're following along, I highly recommend that you do this. I've gone back and watched some of these myself because there's always something new that comes to mind. It's like reading a book for a second time or a third time or the 27th time. You always notice something more. And what's happened between the first reading and the next reading is you're different. You have changed. It's like going away on a trip and coming back and feeling differently. Well, you're the one that has changed. And as we continue to evolve, as we continue to transform, as we continue to open and awaken our minds, we'll find in this remarkable course book new ideas that will look fresh, even though you've read them before. They will speak to you in a different way. And I can tell you today that lesson 60, the ideas that we're about to go through, all of these hit me differently now than they did 3 years ago. They hit me differently now than they did 8 years ago, which was the first time, incidentally, that I went through the workbook for students. It was in 2013, and that carried over into 2014. It's totally different now. What's different? Well, the words are the same as they were taken down in the 1970s, but I'm different. My experience is different. And if you've done this more than once, and I know that some of you have, that will likely be something that will sound very familiar. So let's go through these lessons. They're workbook lessons 46 through 50, as covered here in lesson 60 in the workbook. So the first one for today is God is the love in which I forgive. So we've been talking about God. We talked about God yesterday in the review lessons. We're going to do the same here today. God is the love in which I forgive. God is love. Now, this is something, incidentally, that I was taught in Sunday school as a kid. Now, if you're just catching this, was raised in a couple of very different Christian traditions in the United States, fundamentalist. One of them was extremely fundamentalist, and they claimed to have pretty much the monopoly on God, on spirituality, on Jesus, on everything. Maybe you can relate to these groups of people that think that they're right and everyone else is wrong. So I went through that experience growing up. One of the things that they did say that really struck a chord with me and that resonated, because it's true, is God is love. Yeah. Right? And so we also are love. We're not human beings that love. We are love. Fundamentally, at the core, God is the love in which I forgive. Now, forgiveness is a central theme in A Course in Miracles, and it warrants a lot more time than I have today on this live stream. So I will tell you that we will spend more time here on this live stream on forgiveness, not only as we go forward in the workbook for students, but also through guest speakers. And also I will be offering workshops on this. This is really, really important, because forgiveness in A Course in Miracles means something other than what we think of in the world. We tend to experience forgiveness the way a parent might forgive us, saying, okay, I forgive you for being bad, but don't do it again. Or if you do it again, then X consequence is going to ensue. There's strings attached. Now, that's not complete forgiveness. It's not completely given. It's not completely received. And A Course talks about that differently. So for right now, it suffices for us just to know that God is the love in which we forgive. God is love, and forgiveness is what we're here to do. I do recommend that people often have asked me questions as I've led groups and seminars and things like that, saying, well, I can't really forgive everyone. I had an abusive ex-spouse, for example, or an abusive ex-partner, or, I was really mistreated. I'm just not there. And that's okay. Uh, If you're not there, then what I recommend that you do is start with what you can do. Start where you are, right? That's another way of looking at the phrase "start where you are" that has completely made the rounds in spiritual parlance in this world, hasn't it? It's true. It's wisdom. Start where you are. If all you can do is forgive yourself for spilling coffee this morning, then do that. That helps, right? Every little bit helps. Nothing is ever lost in the practice of forgiveness, and that's just something that really helped me, because when I started this, I couldn't forgive a lot of things yet. I just wasn't there. I wasn't ready, and I needed to do it gradually. So I say this because you might be feeling the same thing. But yeah, lesson 46, I mean, just this review: God is the love in which I forgive. Lesson 47, God is the strength in which I trust. Yeah. And as we forgive, as we choose love, because that's one way of choosing love, isn't it? Forgiveness. It's an act of love. So as we choose love, what's going on is we're remembering, we're waking up, we're awakening to love. In other words, we're remembering our own strength. It says it right here, lesson 60 in the commentary. Yeah, we're remembering our own strength. That's beautiful. And it's true. Lesson 48, there's nothing to fear. Okay. Yeah. Can you imagine if you were not afraid of anything? In other words, you didn't exhibit any of the emotions that, in fact, are fear, like anger, frustration, rage, lack. Can you imagine if you felt completely limitless at all times, if you did not experience limits, if you did not become enraged, if things came at you and they just didn't faze you at all, and you remained totally calm and loving in the face of a violent storm? Yeah, can you imagine that? It's the destiny of all of us. There is nothing to fear. God is. No, love is. And that statement, God is, period, means that nothing else is. If you're new to A Course in Miracles, it can be summed up really quickly, and it is at the beginning of the text in just a few short phrases. Okay. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Therein lies the peace of God. All right. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Therein lies the peace of God. And you might say, well, yeah, but it does exist. I'm angry right now. I read my social media feed and somebody made me angry. It got under my skin, and yeah, my work colleague got under my skin, for example. My boss did. Right? Maybe it was your parents, your kids. I don't know. Something or someone in the world annoyed you. Well, we cling to that as real, but ultimately, it's not. Ultimately, it's not. Who we are has never changed, despite the fact that we're having a cyclic existence of recycled drama. We can step out of that. And in fact, there is nothing to fear. That is powerful. There is nothing to fear. Okay. Lesson 49, God's voice speaks to me all through the day. Yes. One reason why meditation and calm and stillness is so important. However you get that, general self-care, however you get yourself into a point where you are calm and still, that is when and where and how we hear the voice for God, which in Course terminology is called the Holy Spirit. So that's when we hear our guides, when we're calm. We can access this state of calm through deliberate action to the point where it becomes habitual and you show up as chill, right? You don't have to look like other people that show up as chill, but in the calm, even if you can only manage it for 10 to 15 seconds in the course of a day, that is fantastic. It's good. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is lost in spiritual practice. Start where you are. Do what you're capable of right now, today. That's when you can hear the voice for God. That's when you can hear the universe or your guides or God, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, you name it. That's when you can hear and feel and have the experience of God's voice speaking to you. It's not when we're in a fit of rage. If you experience that, that simply means that for right now, in that moment, you've lost your way. What do? Well, we return to love in the present moment, which is all we have. Lesson 50 and the final review lesson, not only today, but for this review period, is that I am sustained by the love of God. Yeah. As we listen to God's voice, we're sustained by God's love. And it fundamentally alters our experience. And if you have started out along this path, along this road, you'll know. And I can tell you that it's been 8 years since I first picked up A Course in Miracles, and I'm a very different person. I've forgiven people that I never thought that I would forgive. I've moved on emotionally and spiritually and psychologically from situations that I had allowed to hold me back in life. This is what spiritual practice looks like. You come out later on as a very, very different person, more forgiving, more loving, more calm, more decisive for sure, right? Because we're always choosing right now in the present moment. You can be as decisive as anyone by choosing love right now. Yeah. More relaxed. Yeah, maybe that's something that you've experienced with spirituality. It'd be very interesting to know, and I would invite you to type in the comments, since you started your spiritual practice, whenever that was, whatever that is, how are you different? Yeah? How have you changed? How have you transformed? How differently are you now showing up in the world as a result of taking the time and making the effort to practice? Very interesting question. I'd love to know that. And I'm going to bring up here the live stream so I can say hello to all of you who are joining me here today. And by the way, I thank all of you for your shares and all of the comments every day. This is a daily live stream, so I really appreciate all of your showing up here. So hello, Andrea and Robert and Liliane. Hi, how are you? Good evening from Romania. Yes. And from Norway, fantastic. All right, from Europe, thank you all for tuning in here. This is fun. We've had people joining us literally from all over the world. And isn't it wonderful that we have a network like Enlightened World Network? Isn't it wonderful that we have the technology that we do so that we can communicate with each other and reach each other? I mean, the Course tells us that the body, our human body that we sometimes identify as us, is in fact just a communication mechanism. It's a way of extending love to everybody. It's a way of extending the message of God, of spirituality, of a Course in Miracles, of any spiritual tradition. And that is the best, the highest And according to the Course, the only decent use for it is extending love. So, yeah, thank you all for joining us. And if you think of something to add to the discussion of how has spirituality changed you, I will remember to ask that again on tomorrow's live stream, because I do go live here on the network every day. And for today, thank you all for tuning in. If you have specific questions, feel welcome to leave them here in the comment thread, and I will get to them throughout the day, because I do check this throughout the day. So thank you so much for tuning in here today. And